I'm 91. I believed this one lie for 70 years. It's the reason I'm dying alone. I have a wooden box on my nightstand. Walnut, with a brass clasp that's gone green from all the years. Inside, there's only one thing. A train ticket. October 14th, 1965. Departure from Grand Central. Destination Chicago. I bought it 60 years ago. I never used it. People ask me sometimes what it's like to be 91. They expect me to talk about my body, the aches, the slowness. But that's not the hard part. The hard part is the remembering. Because when you're this old, you don't just remember events. You remember who you were. And sometimes that person feels like a stranger who made choices you're still paying for. I've been wearing a mask so long I forgot what my real face looks like. You know how actors talk about getting into character? How they become someone else under the lights? I did that. Except my stage was a kitchen, a living room, a bedroom I shared with a man I stopped recognizing decades ago. The costume was an apron, then a business suit when those became acceptable, then the soft cardigans of a grandmother. The script was written by everyone except me. The funny thing about masks is this. If you wear one long enough, it doesn't just cover your face, it starts to grow into the skin. You try to pull it off, and you realize there's nothing underneath anymore. Just raw tissue where a person used to be. My husband died 3 years ago. We were married for 62 years. At his funeral, people stood up and talked about what a beautiful love story we had, how lucky we were, how rare it is to find someone and stay with them that long. I sat in the front pew in my black dress, accepting condolences, and I thought, they're talking about someone else, some other couple, some other life. We slept in separate bedrooms for the last 30 years. Did you know that? Nobody knew that. We had a system. When company came, I'd move some of my things into his room. A robe on the hook, slippers by the bed. The performance had to be perfect, you see. The neighbors, the children, the friends from church, everyone needed to believe. There's a particular smell that fills a house where two people live together without really speaking. It's not unpleasant, exactly. It's just empty, like a room that's been closed up too long. Old paper and dust, and something faintly sour underneath. The smell of words that were never said, of air that was never cleared. I'd spray lavender in the hallways before guests arrived. I'd bake bread so the house would smell like a home instead of what it was, a museum, a mausoleum, two people existing in parallel, never touching. I met Edward in 1963. I was 22. He worked at a bookshop in the village, the kind of place that doesn't exist anymore, cramped and dim with towers of paperbacks reaching toward a water-stained ceiling. He had ink on his fingers, always. He'd been writing something, a novel, he said, though I never saw more than scattered pages. What I remember most is the way he listened, not waiting for his turn to speak, actually listening, like what I said mattered, like my thoughts were worth the space they took. We had 11 months together, 11 months of walking through Washington Square in the rain, of coffee that cost 15 cents, and conversations that lasted until the waitress started stacking chairs, of his tiny apartment with the radiator that clanged and the window that looked out on a brick wall. I was happy, the kind of happy that makes you suspicious because it can't possibly last. It didn't. My mother found out. I don't know how. Maybe she saw something in my face when I came home. Maybe someone from the neighborhood spotted us. It doesn't matter now. What matters is what she said. She sat me down at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd eaten breakfast every morning of my life, and she told me Edward was a dead end, a dreamer with no prospects, a man who would keep me in a cold apartment reading poetry while the world passed us by. She said, There's a young man from a good family who's been asking about you. Robert. His father owns the furniture store on Maple. He'll give you a real life. And I believed her. That's the lie I've carried for 70 years. I believed that the right choice would make me happy. That doing what I was supposed to do would eventually feel like doing what I wanted. That love was a luxury, and stability was the real prize. That if I just performed the role well enough, long enough, it would become real. I wrote Edward a letter. I couldn't face him. I told him I'd met someone else, that it was serious, that I was sorry. I never heard from him again. I imagine he finished his book, or didn't. I imagine he found someone else to walk with in the rain, or didn't. I'll never know. I trained myself not to wonder. For decades, I succeeded. I married Robert 4 months later. June wedding, white dress, 300 guests. The photographs show a young woman smiling. I look at them now and I try to remember what she was feeling. I think she was relieved. She'd made the safe choice. She'd done the right thing. She could stop being afraid. Robert was not a bad man. I want to be clear about that. He didn't hit me. He didn't drink too much. He provided. He showed up. He did everything a husband was supposed to do in 1965. The problem wasn't that he was cruel. The problem was that he was a stranger. From our wedding night onward, I was sleeping beside someone I didn't know. And that never changed. Not in 62 years. Do you know what it's like to lie next to someone in the dark, year after year, decade after decade, and feel nothing? Not anger, not love, not even irritation, just absence. I would listen to him breathe. I would feel the heat from his body. And I would think about train stations, about what would have happened if I'd gotten on that train, if I'd gone to Chicago where Edward said he'd meet me. If I'd chosen the cold apartment and the poetry and the uncertainty. People my age, we were taught that feelings were unreliable. That passion faded, but commitment lasted. That you could learn to love someone if you tried hard enough. So I tried. For years, I tried. I cooked his favorite meals. I remembered his collar size and his preferred brand of coffee. I attended his work functions and laughed at his colleagues' jokes. I built a life, brick by brick, hoping that at some point I would feel at home in it. I never did. The performance became everything. Robert and I stood in our kitchen at parties, and he'd put his arm around me, and I'd lean into him, and everyone would comment on how well suited we were, how comfortable. And I would smile and think, they have no idea. They're watching a play. They're applauding a fiction. Our children came. 3 of them. And here's where it gets complicated. Because I loved them. I loved them with everything I had. They were the only real thing in my manufactured life. When I held my daughter for the first time, I thought, finally, something true. But even that was tainted, because I couldn't give them a mother who was whole. I gave them the shell of a woman, the mask, the performance. They grew up thinking this was what marriage looked like. This distant politeness, this careful choreography. I wonder sometimes if they know. My daughter called me last month. She's 58 now, divorced, living in Arizona. She said, "Mum, were you ever happy?" Just like that, out of nowhere. And I didn't know what to tell her. I said, of course I was happy. I had you children. I had a good life. The mask speaking, the performance continuing. Even now, even with Robert gone, even with nothing left to protect, I couldn't tell her the truth. Maybe because I don't know what the truth would change. The year we stopped sharing a bedroom, I was 59. Robert was 63. There was no fight, no dramatic moment. He simply said one evening that he thought he'd sleep better in the guest room. His back was bothering him. He needed a firmer mattress. I said, of course, whatever you need. And that was it. We never discussed it again. We never discussed anything again. Not really. What did we talk about? The grandchildren, the news, home repairs, safe topics, neutral ground. We'd sit at breakfast reading different sections of the newspaper. We'd watch television in the evenings, side by side on the couch. His programs, then my programs, trading the remote without touching hands. We'd go to bed in our separate rooms and wake up in the morning and do it all again. 30 years of that. 30 years. Sometimes I imagine what I would say if I could interrupt the performance. If I could stand up in the middle of one of those dinner parties, glass of wine in hand, and tell everyone the truth. I'd say, this is all a lie. I've been lying to you for 40 years. I don't love this man. I never did. I loved someone else once, someone who saw me, really saw me, and I gave him up because I was afraid. Because my mother told me to. Because I thought safety was more important than feeling alive. But the audience is gone now. The dinner parties ended years ago. Robert is dead. Most of our friends are dead. It's just me in this big house, walking from room to room, still performing for no one. I kept that train ticket in my jewelry box for 60 years. After Robert died, I moved it to my nightstand. I take it out sometimes in the middle of the night when I can't sleep. The paper is soft now, almost like fabric. The printing has faded. October 14th, 1965. 8:30 a.m. departure. I was supposed to be on that train. I was supposed to start a different life. There's a question I've been asking myself for 70 years. Was my life an act of endurance or an act of cowardice? Did I do something noble by staying, by building a family, by keeping my commitments? Or did I do something unforgivable by abandoning myself, by choosing comfort over truth? I don't know the answer. I used to think I did. When the children were young, I thought, this is why. They're why I stayed. They're what makes it worthwhile. But now the children are grown and gone, and the grandchildren visit twice a year. And I'm alone in this house that was never really a home, and I'm not sure any of it was worth anything. You know what terrifies me about dying? It's not the pain. It's not the unknown. It's the possibility that something comes after. Because if something comes after, I might have to see Edward again. And what would I say? How do you apologize for 60 years of cowardice? How do you explain that you threw away the one real thing you ever had because your mother told you it wasn't practical? There's a part of me that hopes there's nothing, just darkness, just silence, an end to the performance with no curtain call, no audience waiting, no judgment. But there's another part, the part that still holds that train ticket at 3 a.m, that hopes I'll see him, that hopes he'll understand. That hopes love is bigger than one terrible choice made by a frightened girl in 1965. Every night, I replay it. I'm standing on the platform at Grand Central. The train is waiting. My suitcase is in my hand. And in my version, the version I've revised 10,000 times, I get on. I find a seat by the window. I watch New York disappear behind me. And when I arrive in Chicago, he's there. Ink on his fingers. That crooked smile. That way of listening, like I'm the only person in the world. I wake up in my bed. Alone. 87 years from that platform. And I realize I've been editing a story that can never be rewritten. My children think I'm at peace. They think I've had a good life, a full life, and now I'm in the gentle twilight of it. They bring me flowers and photographs and casseroles I can't finish. They pat my hand and tell me how strong I am. They have no idea that their mother erased herself 70 years ago, that the woman they know is a character I invented, that underneath the role, there's almost nothing left. I wonder what would happen if I told them. If I said, I never loved your father, I loved someone else, I've been pretending your entire lives, would they be angry, hurt, or would they recognize something? Some pattern in their own lives, some compromise they've made, some mask they're wearing that they can't take off. Women of my generation, we were experts at disappearing. We learned it from our mothers, who learned it from theirs. We learned that our desires were inconvenient, that our dreams were impractical, that the best we could hope for was a good man and a nice house and the respect of our neighbors. We learned that love was a feeling and marriage was a decision, and the decision was more important than the feeling. I made the decision. I've lived with it for 70 years, and now I'm dying with it. Not quickly. The doctors say I could have another year, maybe 2. My heart is giving out, not all at once, just slowly, beat by beat, winding down like a clock that no one remembers to wind. I think there's something fitting about that, a heart that never fully opened, finally stopping. I have one photograph of Edward, just one. It's hidden in the back of a book on my shelf, a collection of poetry he gave me. I haven't looked at it in years. I'm afraid of what I'll see. Not him. I'm afraid of seeing myself. The girl I was before I learned to perform, before the mask grew into my face. If I could go back. If I could be 22 again, standing in my mother's kitchen, being told to make the right choice. I don't know what I would do. That's the honest truth. I'd like to say I would be brave, that I would choose love over safety, that I would get on that train. But I know myself too well now. I know how fear works. How it convinces you that the safe path is the only path. How it disguises cowardice as wisdom. Maybe I would make the same choice. Maybe I would end up exactly here, in this room, with this train ticket, with these memories. Maybe there's no version of my life where I'm not dying alone, but maybe not. Maybe there's a version where I took the risk, where I chose the uncertain thing, the frightening thing, the alive thing. Maybe there's a version where I'm 91 and I'm not alone, where the hand I'm holding belongs to someone who actually knows me, where the life I'm leaving behind was real. I'll never know. That's what I live with. That's what I'm dying with. The weight of a road not taken. The ghost of a train I never boarded. The echo of a love I didn't trust enough to keep. The house is quiet now. It's always quiet. I turn off the lamp. I lie in the dark. I listen to my own breathing, shallow and slow. And I think about masks, about performances, about how long you can pretend to be someone before you forget you were ever anyone else. 70 years. The answer is 70 years. And then you're alone in the dark, holding a train ticket to nowhere, wondering if anything underneath the lie was ever real at all. I don't know anymore. I'm not sure I ever did.